In 1929, a Turkish naval officer named Piri Reis walked into a room in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul and pulled a rolled map off a dusty shelf. What he unrolled would quietly break the rules of everything historians thought they knew about the ancient world. The map, drawn in 1513, showed a landmass at the bottom of the globe. Accurate, detailed, geographically precise, Antarctica, which, by all accepted historical record, was not discovered until 1820. That is a 307-year gap. So here is the question that has haunted cartographers,
Historians.
and Vatican archivists for nearly a century. Who drew the original map that Piri Reis copied from? And why does the Vatican's secret archive hold documents that may tell us exactly that? You are standing in Constantinople, the city the world now calls Istanbul, in the year 1513. The Ottoman Empire is at the height of its power. Sultan Selim I controls trade routes across 3 continents. His cartographers are among the most sophisticated in the world, pulling from Greek manuscripts, Arab navigational charts, and captured Portuguese sailing logs. And Piri Reis, full name Haji Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri, is one of the finest among them. He is not simply drawing from imagination. He tells us this himself. In the margins of the map, in his own handwriting, Piri Reis records that he compiled his work from approximately 20 source maps, including charts he claims date back to the time of Alexander the Great. 20 source maps. Some of them ancient beyond reckoning. The completed Piri Reis map is presented to Sultan Selim I in 1517. It covers the Atlantic Ocean, the western coastlines of Europe and Africa, and the eastern coast of South America, drawn with stunning accuracy for its era. But it is the bottom of the map that stops everyone cold. There is land there, sweeping, contoured, coastal land, sitting precisely where Antarctica sits today. In 1929, when the map is rediscovered and sent to the U.S. Navy Hydrographic Office for analysis, cartographer Captain Arlington Mallory makes a statement that is still debated today. He says the coastline on the Piri Reis map matches the subglacial topography of Antarctica, the shape of the continent beneath the ice, with a precision that modern sonar mapping only confirmed in 1949. The ice that has covered Antarctica for an estimated 6,000 years. Which means, if Mallory is correct, whoever originally drew that map did so before the ice arrived. Or they had technology we have never accounted for. But here's where it gets strange. Piri Reis does not claim to have invented those source maps. He claims to have copied them. And the trail of those originals, the maps he held in his hands in 1513, leads directly into the most restricted archive on Earth, the Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly called the Vatican Secret Archive, a name the Vatican only officially dropped into 2019. A rebranding that, depending on who you ask, was either routine modernization or a quiet acknowledgement that the word secret had become a liability. The archive holds 53 linear miles of shelving, 85 kilometers of documented history, from papal correspondence with Michelangelo to the trial records of Galileo. Researchers must apply months in advance. They cannot browse freely. Documents are brought to them, one request at a time. And there are sections, entire cataloged wings, that remain restricted to outside scholars entirely. Now, 3 theories have emerged around the Piri Reis map and what those restricted archives might contain. Each one is more unsettling than the last, Theory 1. The Alexandrian inheritance, the Library of Alexandria, did not die in a single fire. Most historians now agree it declined gradually, looted, stripped, partially burned across multiple centuries. But before its final collapse, significant portions of its collection were copied and redistributed across the Mediterranean world. What researchers found next changed everything about how we view that dispersal. A 1953 analysis by Professor Charles Hapgood of Keene State College, working with a team of his cartography students and consulting with the U.S. Air Force, concluded that the Piri Reis source maps showed knowledge of spherical trigonometry and a sophisticated projection system that was not redeveloped in Europe until the 16th century. That knowledge had to come from somewhere. The theory, the original charts were Alexandrian, pre-Christian, pre-Roman in some cases, and were absorbed into the early church's manuscript collection as Christianity absorbed the institutions of Rome. They moved, they were copied, and eventually they were locked away, not out of malice, but out of the same institutional preservation that has always defined the Vatican's relationship with knowledge it considers either sacred or dangerously misunderstood. Theory 2. The Phoenician horizon. The Phoenicians sailed farther than we credit them. That much is no longer seriously disputed. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, describes a Phoenician fleet circumnavigating Africa at the commission of the Egyptian pharaoh Necho II, around 600 BC. For centuries, that account was dismissed as mythology. Then came the analysis of ancient charcoal deposits, trade goods, and DNA markers that have pushed Phoenician reach into the Atlantic, and some fringe but peer-reviewed scholarship now suggests as far as the Americas, centuries before Columbus. If Phoenician navigators reached sub-equatorial waters and mapped what they found, those charts would have been the most valuable intelligence documents in the ancient world. The theory. Some of those charts survived into the medieval period, moved through Arab scholarship during the Islamic Golden Age, and copies eventually reached both Ottoman cartographers and the Vatican through the same network of Byzantine manuscript exchange that preserved so much of antiquity. What the Vatican may hold is not a conspiracy. It may simply be an archive of inconvenient chronology. This is the theory that the scientific establishment is most reluctant to engage with, and the one that has the most troubling implications. Geological evidence confirms that Antarctica was not always ice-covered. The continent last experienced significant ice-free coastal regions approximately 6,000 years ago, possibly later in isolated areas. If a seafaring civilization, not necessarily technologically advanced, simply navigating, reached Antarctic waters during that window, they could have mapped a coastline that is now buried under 2 miles of ice. Those maps could have survived. And if the Vatican archive contains documents that place human maritime activity in Antarctic waters before the accepted timeline of even basic ocean navigation, the implications for the entire framework of ancient history are not small. They are foundational. They rewrite the beginning. In 2012, the Vatican opened a limited portion of the archive to international scholars for the first time. A project called the Pius XII Archive focused on wartime documents. What the project revealed, accidentally, was the sheer volume of pre-16th century cartographic materials that no external researcher had ever cataloged. Not the maps themselves, just the index entries, references to navigational documents listed under acquisitions from the dissolution of the Byzantine Empire in 1453. When Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks, the same empire Piri Reis would serve 60 years later. The Vatican moved aggressively to acquire manuscripts before they were scattered or destroyed. What they acquired is logged. What those logs contain has never been fully published. A researcher named Dr. Ingrid Olsen, a Swedish historical cartographer writing in 2018, formally requested access to 14 specific catalog entries referencing pre-Columbian nautical documents acquired in 1453 and 1454. She was denied. The denial cited neither sensitivity nor legal restriction. It cited ongoing assessment, After 60 years of scholarly access requests, here is what we can say with certainty. The Piri Reis map exists. It is real. It is in Istanbul, and you can visit it. The Antarctic coastline on it is real. The Navy said so. The source maps Piri Reis claimed to use are real. He documented them himself. The Vatican acquired massive quantities of Byzantine cartographic material in 1453. That is real. The restricted catalog entries are real. Dr. Olson's denial is real and documented. What we cannot say, what no one outside those archive walls can say, is what those 14 entries actually describe. Maybe they are routine navigational charts, trade routes, coastal surveys of the Aegean, maybe, but somewhere in 85 kilometers of shelving, in a city-state that answers to no government on Earth, in an archive that has been accumulating the manuscript inheritance of Western civilization for over 1,000 years, there are maps that have not been shown. And the question that keeps serious researchers awake, the question that Piri Reis himself could not answer when the Sultan asked him where his source charts originated, is not where those maps came from. It is when you have been told that exploration is a story with a clear timeline, that humans worked their way outward, slowly, bravely, incrementally, and that the edges of the world revealed themselves to us in a sequence we understand. The Piri Reis map suggests the timeline has a gap in it, not a small one. Whatever civilization or civilizations first charted those southern waters, they did so far enough in the past that the knowledge passed through multiple hands, across multiple languages, across centuries of conflict and collapse before a Turkish admiral copied it onto gazelle skin in 1513. And somewhere in Rome, in a climate-controlled room that scholars are still waiting to enter, the original may still exist. So here is the question we leave you with. If the Vatican opened those 14 catalog entries tomorrow, if the world was allowed to see whatever those documents describe, would it change anything? Or have we already decided, as a civilization, that some vaults are more comfortable closed? Think about that. If you want to open more vaults like this one, subscribe. We post every week. And if you know something about this map that we don't, the comments are open.